My name is Francis Johnson, and along with co-counsel Maoli Davis of Davis Bozeman Johnson Law, we have the privilege of representing the family of Julian Lewis. Julian Lewis, as you all know, was a senior citizen who was traveling in Screven County on August the 7th, 2020. He was shot to death in a police-involved encounter with an ex-state trooper by the name of Jacob Gordon Thompson. Mr. Thompson at that time was working on patrol with the Georgia State Patrol, and according to his report, he was attempting to stop Mr. Lewis for a broken tail light. We subsequently learned that he executed a pit maneuver on Mr. Julian Lewis on a fairly desolate strip of rural Screven County dirt road, and brought Mr. Lewis's car to a stop, resting against the back of a tree. Mr. Lewis's car was immobile and inoperable, according to the GVI's investigation. And less than 1 second after Trooper Thompson disengaged his vehicle and opened the door, he fired a shot, killing Julian Lewis. And of course, in the days following this death, the GBI came to the conclusion, along with the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit, that what Trooper Jacob Gordon Thompson did on August the 7th was not consistent with his duties as a peace officer, went beyond the scope of the law, and violated the law, and they subsequently charged ex-trooper Thompson on August the 14th with felony murder and aggravated assault. Bond was initially denied in this case, and we received notice today from the Chief Judge of the Superior Court of Screven County, F. Gates Peed, that upon reconsideration, motion brought by the defense, that he was admitting ex-trooper Thompson to a $100,000 cash or property bond with conditions. We are holding this press conference to give you the family's response to this bond admittance, as well as to give you some updates on the case as we see it. Attorney Maoli Davis of our Decatur office has been working very closely with the Lewis family, particularly Betty Lewis and Brooke Bacon, as well as with our legal team. And we gave notice to the state last week that we intended to bring civil claims against the state for the actions of ex-trooper Jacob Gordon Thompson. We'll speak about that. Primarily today is an opportunity for the family to respond to the fact that within the last hour, ex-trooper Jacob Gordon Thompson walked out of a Screven County jail and is free on bond. I'll turn it over to Attorney Davis to speak about the bond, the conditions of the bond, and to introduce Brooke Bacon, and followed by Betty Lewis. And then we will have some commentary about our civil claims and the nature of today's proceeding regarding the criminal prosecution, and then open it up for questions from the media. Attorney Davis.
Yes, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, as Attorney Johnson mentioned, the family was made aware that the man accused of killing their loved one has been released from jail on bond, on a $100,000 bond. And the conditions are relatively standard conditions in terms of not leaving the judicial circuit, not possessing a firearm, not taking any alcohol or drugs. And one of the things that I think earlier on the family has wondered, and I think we all wonder, is if the if Mr. Lewis were alive and he had actually caused the death of the trooper, would he be granted a bond? Um, and we have other cases that we believe are similarly situated in the judicial circuit that, again, just give us pause and concern about this development. And so we're concerned. We're very concerned. The family has been made aware that this is obviously one step that under Georgia law, individuals who meet certain criteria are entitled to a bond. And the judge decided that Jacob Gordon Thompson met the criteria. Again, we are continuing to look at and examine other instances where individuals charged with crimes as serious as this have been granted a bond. So we're continuing to research that issue, and we offhand don't know of very many at all in this particular circuit. So again, that's another concern that just arises from the nature of this very troubling death. We have had many civil rights cases that have involved police using deadly force. And this one, with the absolute, the manner in which Mr. Lewis was shot and with little time to react at all, gave us, again, the basis for our belief that Jacob Thompson should be charged, that we should be engaging not only a criminal system, but a civil lawsuit as well. And so those are some of the things that have really been brought to our attention that concern us about these recent developments. We just want to make it very clear that this family has moved and continue to move in a way that is with absolute dignity, lifting up the name of their loved one in a way with love and respect, but at the same time, they are going to continue to demand justice. They believe that what happened on August the 7th was a violation of his human civil rights and was fundamentally against the law. And so they'll continue and will continue with them to advocate for justice. And with that, I would like to bring Mr. Lewis's son, Mr. Brooke Bacon, forward so that he can make a comment, provide his reaction to this troubling news that we received this morning and that he received this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, and thank you, Francis, for bringing all this together and drawing attention to this tragedy. The news is it's not surprising, but it is deeply disappointing. It's upsetting. This ruling, despite the just egregious nature and fatal outcome of his decision and actions, it just doesn't seem to fall in line with justice. It does seem to fall in line with the trends that we're seeing, where officers are not being held fully accountable and being released on bond. So there was no surprise there, but the outcome should have reflected justice and having him stay in place behind bars until his day in court. That's what should have happened. But where we look now is forward. We look forward. We need to proceed to the trial so that all of the evidence can be brought to light and justice can be seen there. We have to just keep moving forward. We can't look backwards at this point. What has been done, there's no action that can be really taken against that. He is free on bail, and that should not be. That is not justice. But we'll stay diligent and press forward to receive justice. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brooke. We appreciate that. And Ms. Lewis, Ms. Betty Lewis, are you on the line? I'm just looking to see.
Attorney Davis, Ms. Lewis is not going to join at this time. If she is up to it, she may join us later in the presentation. She has asked me to convey to those interested that this changes nothing for her. She is absolutely resolved to see justice for Julian Lewis, that he did not deserve to die this way. And she will not cower in fear, although she may encounter Jacob Gordon Thompson in the grocery store or in the community where they live. She is not going to be coward in fear, but she is resolved to see justice for her husband, who should be preparing for Christmas, but instead is sleeping in a grave at the Charleston United Methodist Church in rural Screven County, not but a few miles from where he was gunned down. And as the prosecutor, Barkley Black, stated at the initial bond hearing, where he was killed, where he was murdered by ex-trooper Jacob Gordon Thompson after Mr. Thompson committed aggravated assault by shooting him in the head. Before he can ask him his name, he had already decided that he should die. And that's a tragedy, but it's one that is an all too familiar narrative in America today, that an unarmed African American dies in police custody. Attorney Davis, it's important to note that some may see this as a measure of the strength or weakness of the case, and they should not. Case law in Georgia is very specific as to the fact that bond and consideration of the same does not touch the merits of the case, does not touch the merits of the case. And the courts are very careful about that, that you should not read anything into the fact that a defendant has been granted bond other than he meets the criteria. Of course, we disagreed with that, and Ms. Lewis, in her initial presentation to the court, where the court did deny bond, stated that this trooper, who was sworn to serve and protect, was trained according to the policies and procedures of the Georgia State Patrol and the Department of Public Safety, went beyond his training and went beyond the law. And after the fatal encounter that we previously described and that Brooke Bacon has reacted to earlier, chose, instead of telling the truth, to obfuscate, to lie, and then to lie again in written form when questioned by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. That according to the state, remember, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit, the statements of ex-trooper Thompson do not line up with the evidence, the facts, as their investigation has led them to, which is why they brought these charges in the first place. So if he lied then, why wouldn't he lie again? Why wouldn't he lie again about the bond conditions that have been placed on him, including the fact that he cannot leave Screven, Jenkins, Effingham, or Bullitt County? The four counties that compose the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit is the extent of the travel that ex-trooper Thompson will be able to do during this interim period of his prosecution. Additionally, he cannot consume alcohol or illegal drugs unless they are prescribed to him. He cannot violate the law in any way. He cannot intimidate witnesses or have any contact directly or indirectly with any witness in this case or the family of Julian Lewis. And I remind folks that we are aware that of the 7 witnesses that testified at the reconsideration hearing, there were 4 that were active duty peace officers. And what that means is that Trooper Thompson cannot have any contact with any person who could be a witness in this case. And that includes those law enforcement officers and any other ex-colleagues that he may have had who have any relationship to this case or might possibly be called as a witness. We have combed through the witness affidavits that have been provided to the court, as well as those who testified, and we will be careful to make sure that we update the court if there's contact between any of those folks who filed witness affidavits or who testified, or who may be called to testify in the crime.
Attorney Johnson, you're muted. Attorney Johnson, you're muted.
We are monitoring the chat for questions at the time. And if there are questions, Attorney Davis, myself, and Brooke Bacon are available to answer them.
I'll just add this, that last week we did file a notice of claim, and that is a part of the civil proceeding, and I wanted to make sure that no one was confused. We filed that notice of claim. We gathered in Savannah, where if the state decides not to resolve this matter within the next 30 days, that we will file suit in the federal court in the Southern District in Savannah, Georgia. And so we just, again, are very clear that what happened today deters no one as a part of our camp and a part of this family, and that we'll continue to press forward. And that, again, the troubling part of this is that the family wonders if the shoe were on the other foot and Mr. Lewis was alive, would he be released? And that is a reality that too many African-American families face when unarmed men mostly, but women as well, are killed by law enforcement. And that's something that we can't get away from. So we have and continue to encourage all of America. This isn't a Georgia issue. This is an American issue. We could encourage all of America to maintain their vigilance and keep all eyes on Screven County and on the case in the death of Julian Lewis. His life mattered. He deserves this kind of scrutiny that should come from all four corners of America and around the world, because what happened within a second of this officer exiting his vehicle is just inexplicable and something that we should be concerned about if we want to live in a society where all people feel as though they can move about in a way that their lives are not in jeopardy, just based on who they are or how they look. That is, again, a troubling situation. So with that, if there are questions.
By way of response to Sean Evans, we will follow up upon your request. To Enoch Autry, we'll follow up on your request. And to Ms. Mount of Fox 28, we'll follow up upon your request. Other questions? You know, one of the questions that has emerged in the chat to me, Attorney Davis, and it bears mentioning, is that this case has been proceeding in an unusual pace for police-involved killings. We think that's a direct response to the citizens' outcry for more responsive governmental action of these kinds of cases following the tragic death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery in Brunswick, Georgia. And I think there's a heightened scrutiny of police conduct, and to whom much is given, much is required, and rightly so, as well as the full measure of the criminal justice response, not just to review the police conduct, but the role the prosecutor plays, the investigatory agency, in this case, the GBI plays, and the other participants in that criminal justice system, and the role they play in ensuring equal justice under the law. And so this case has proceeded on a pace that is different than other police-involved killings, but that is not the standard. The standard is, if no one is above the law, how will this case proceed if the defendant and the assailant or the decedent change places? If Mr. Lewis had shot and killed a state trooper, and we think that is very consistent in this case, and we applaud the GBI under the leadership of Vic Reynolds, as well as the Geechee Judicial Circuit under the leadership of acting DA Daphne Totten for their swift investigation, as well as the charges that have been brought in this case. But make no mistake about it, there is not a single police officer that's being held without bond in this country, including the killer of George Floyd. So I don't want anyone to read anything into this case because this trooper was granted bond today. It changes nothing about the case or the strength or weakness of it. Matter of fact, bond conditions, again, have been imposed, very stringent bond conditions, and bond itself is not in consideration of the merits of the case. And again, the state disputed in court at the original bond proceeding and at the reconsideration hearing whether this trooper met those criteria. He has been granted a bond, and we move forward with the prosecution that will be handled by the Ogeechee Judicial Circuit, as well as the civil justice claims that we have raised and put the state on notice about. At this time, we are looking in the queue, and there are no questions. If there are any questions at this time, simply raise your hand or make mention in the queue that you have a question, and we'll come to you directly. Sean Evans has posed the question, is there any response from the state on the civil filings? To your question, we filed a notice of claims, which we are required to file. We did that last week, acknowledging the Tort Claims Act and asking for maximum judgment under the same, a settlement in this matter of $1 million, plus $12 million to compensate the estate and the family of Julian Lewis for the civil rights violations that Mr. Lewis experienced before his death. We put them on notice, and they have 30 days to respond, and we suspect that they will respond. As Attorney Davis mentioned last week when we made that announcement outside the federal court building in Savannah, that we intend to pursue justice. So whether they respond or not, we will move forward with our claims, and there will be a date certain, just as there will be in this criminal prosecution for Jacob Gordon Thompson to answer for the civil liability that he and others who employed him on behalf of the Georgia Department of Public Safety and the Georgia State Troopers have in terms of his responsibility for the death of Julian Lewis on August the 7th. And so we expect that they will respond. We've had a Thanksgiving break between our announcement, and so we anticipate that they will respond, and hopefully they'll come to the table and do the right thing. Other questions? And again, for those of you who have made requests, we'll follow upon those requests that you place in the chat line. Attorney Davis, any other statements from you?
I do want to highlight the fact that one of the issues that was raised during this most recent bond hearing, reconsideration hearing, was that the community's response and that the community would remain calm. And I think that it's important for people to note that there was a protest in Sylvania, and that there have been a number of protests in Sylvania. They have all been peaceful protests. They have all been law-abiding protests. And that, again, at times when there's this coded language used, that it should be very clear that the people who were peaceful were those of the Lewis family and the supporters in the community. They came in love and peace to lift up the name of Julian Lewis, and they did it in a way that they felt was most honorable for him. And so I just want that to be reiterated, not that the response by other elements of the community. We were met by armed men in that gathering. And so I just want it to be clear that the reason that it has been peaceful is that the Lewis family and the supporters and the call for justice have been peaceful, and that has been intentional. And I just want that to be made clear, and not try to change this into something that it's not, as if there is not an outcry of support for Julian Lewis and his family. But in fact, there is, and that outcry is done in a way that has been peaceful and law-abiding. And I just wanted to lift that up because so much of the conversation was about the confidence that law enforcement had in the community. And I just want to be clear about what community the confidence should be based in.
Again, we appreciate those who've taken time to join this press conference. On behalf of Betty Lewis, Brooke Bacon, the entire family of Julian Lewis, they expressed their concern for the bond. They were not surprised, and they all remain resolved to move forward to ensure that justice is done for Julian Lewis, and that there's accountability. To whom much is given, much is required of this ex-state trooper, Jacob Gordon Thompson. Thank you all for joining today.